One of the greatest challenges we face by being creatures in this physical world is dealing with time. Both metaphysicians and even physicists tell us that time is essentially an illusion. Or maybe another way that we can understand that is to say that time is a function of the three-dimensional universe of space and time. We know that there are other dimensions, there are dimensions beyond. There may very well be a spiritual universe as well. All of these alternative realities do not deal with time the way that we do. It seems to be the challenge and the burden we face. We can't control it and we don't have enough of it. In fact, the challenge really seems to be exactly that. Our lives are too short, no matter how long they are. We never even have enough time in the day to do what we want to do. Things won't happen when you want them to, and we all want it to happen right now. So we kind of wish that time was much more under our own control. And yet, one of the greatest problems many of us, if not most of us, actually face on a day-to-day basis is procrastination. Putting things off, waiting until tomorrow or some other time to do what you could or should be doing right now. Isn't that typical of we human beings to have this ambiguous relationship? On the one hand, we complain that there's not enough time to do what we want to do, there's not enough time in life, there's not enough time in the day. And on the other hand, when it comes to settling down to actually do whatever it is that we want to do, we put it off. We waste time. We procrastinate. So what I want to do today is find a way that we can understand why we procrastinate and give you some tips to how you can break that cycle and actually get things done and be the master of your goals. What procrastination is always about is how we do or don't go about achieving a goal. So one of the things we really need to understand in order to understand why we procrastinate has to do with how we set those goals or what those goals are. What we really need to do is look at a few of goals that you've tried to achieve in the past, things that you might be trying to achieve right now, and understand the actual nature of the problem that is stopping you from pursuing that goal. Step number one, though, is to define the goal. That alone can go a long way to deal with procrastination, because sometimes we're procrastinating because the task is vague or the outcome is vague. And with those kind of loose boundaries, it's like we will find a way to get ourselves out of it. So the step number one in all cases is to establish a clear goal. Also, establish goals that are relevant and meaningful right now. They must be significant goals. It's got to be something that either we have to do or that we want to do, or at the very least we can measure our progress. And it's that making progress that we fail to do because of procrastination. So think about some cases when you've procrastinated in the past and that you might be dealing with right now. I'm going to suggest a bunch of things that psychologists talk about as the main reasons why people procrastinate, and find yourself in a few of those, or find some of your tasks in a few of those, and perhaps you'll be able to do what's necessary in order to change that pattern of procrastination. So one common reason that I've actually already mentioned as to why people procrastinate is because goals are not clear enough, and it's all to do with the goals. We create these vague or abstract goals like, I am going to start an exercise program, I need to get fit, and we kind of don't get round to it because it's not clear what the goal actually is. It sounds like a goal, but the correct thing would be to say something like, I am going to go to gym tomorrow. I am going to go to gym after work every day, or have a very specific, very clear goal. You might even want to say what it is that you're going to do at the gym. Mondays I'll do legs, and Tuesdays I'll do cardio, whatever it all may be. And once you've got concrete things, you can take actions on concrete things. In the case of gym, there is another potential problem that not only applies to gym, but that can apply to many goals, and that is the reward is not clear, or even more commonly, the reward is too far in the future. And when you have a reward that's not clear or too far in the future, it gets to become a bit abstract, like the goal in the first place, as I just said. So we need to make clear timelines for those outcomes. Even for a far in the reward future, if we've already got a timeline, an idea of when that is, that's already going to help us. But much more helpful is to bring goals closer. And where that's not possible, it's to chop it up into a smaller sequence of goals and then create steps along the way that give a certain amount of reward. It's when we see outcomes that we're most likely to do the task at hand, and of course rewards also make us feel better. As simple as it is, it's one of the oldest tricks in the book. Reward makes us do the task again. So create close by rewards, create close by outcomes, create timelines. Then you can even have goals that are as long distance as you like. But on the whole, when looking at when you've procrastinated, also remember to look at that issue of, did I set the goal too far in the future? And when it comes to the future, sometimes we're actually a little bit too optimistic about what the future can actually provide for us. So when optimism about the future, which sounds like a good thing, how can that be a cause for procrastination? How could that even be a problem? Well, look at this kind of an example. You've got something that needs to be done by the end of the month. Say you've got an assignment that you need to do, you've got an article you need to write, or something like that. There's a project that needs to be completed by the end of the month. It's not uncommon to say, okay, well, I'll just put it off till the weekend, or I'll put it off till later in the month. There'll be plenty of time. And we have a very strong tendency to underestimate the time it does take to do things. Very strong, with just about everything. A general rule in life is always add 50% to what you think how long it's going to take. And that's just because of a tendency. It's called the planning fallacy, and we tend to assume that things will fit very neatly into this plan. We don't take into account our poor judgment of time, of how long it takes to do things, and that anything might go wrong or other things might come up along the way. Unsurprisingly though, we are very poor judges of time. This thing that we can't get our hands around, procrastination is evidence of that all on its own, but with excessive optimism about the future, that I can wait until the weekend to do this, when it's due next week, means you're actually probably not going to be able to do it. So we underestimate how long it takes to do things, and that's a very common reason why we procrastinate. Similarly, we also think we'll finish the task earlier than we will. So it's okay, I'll have it done by Friday, so then we can all go out jolling on the weekend, and that's not going to happen either. So we need to understand that relationship with time a little bit better. Here's the most common one of all. I can't quite get this together. I'm trying to make something happen. You know what? I'm going to leave this to tomorrow. Tomorrow I will actually be able to do this. And so putting it off till tomorrow is another kind of optimism about the future. Because if you weren't able to do it today, whatever the reasons, they are likely still to be the same reasons tomorrow. Whatever stopped you from doing it today is going to just be the same thing tomorrow. There isn't this magical change that tomorrow you'll be able to bring yourself to work on this, even though today you weren't able to. And a good way to kind of catch yourself on that one is look a bit back in the past and find out how many times did you make that delay. Did you wait until Monday and then on Monday said, I can't do it, I'll start on Tuesday? That's already 2 delays. Waiting until Monday, on Monday saying, I'll get my act together on Tuesday. It's actually the same every day. It's like we overestimate our ability to do something tomorrow because we're not basing it on what's factual. What's factual is our inability to do it today. It's much healthier to say things are likely to be the same tomorrow, so I may as well do it today and get it done. And the other version, another version of the future that also makes us misjudge things is creating options for the future that don't quite exist in the present. So it's really just like I'm waiting for something to develop or change, and then I'll be able to do that. So as soon as they've got the X, Y, or Z option, I'll get on with this. I'll not start exercising on my own. I'm going to wait until I actually go to the gym and start a detailed program, an official kind of program, even though they would start the benefits by starting now. And they can just get more detailed or get more serious when they get to the gym. Putting off things to the future, basing it on this belief, this imagined belief, that somehow the future is going to be better. It's going to give you the options that you need. And things aren't really like that. I mean, sometimes that happens because, and here's another reason for procrastination, just feeling overwhelmed in the present. That can so easily do it. Feeling overwhelmed can lead to feelings of exhaustion, can lead to feelings of low energy, can lead to depression, but just getting to overwhelmed, there's too much going on and we end up doing none of it. And we create a bit of a vicious circle when we do that to ourselves as well. Because of course, by delaying things further at that time, there's more tasks that are not yet done, and we become more overwhelmed. This tendency to get caught in a vicious circle is a very common problem with procrastination, and that's an example of one reason why. I'm overwhelmed, so I won't do it. And then you become more overwhelmed. I spoke a little bit about that last week. It's another version of how anxiety can do that, when I was talking about money. So anxiety about anything can create procrastination about that something, because it's like I'm anxious when I look at my bills that I've got to pay, so I'll delay paying my bills. Then the delay increases the anxiety because the bills haven't been paid. So as a result of the procrastination, the bills are mounting. I don't want to look at the mounting bills because they make me anxious, so I procrastinate, and a vicious circle is established. We do it with many, many things, and we've just got to kind of crack the back of that in some way. It can be something more simple. I mean, sometimes, maybe often, the reason we procrastinate is because we just don't want to do it. Just don't want to go there. So then, we avoid it. And avoiding stuff is the most common reason of all for procrastination. We might need to then just work on setting better motives and better rewards. If you give yourself a reason to do something, or you concentrate on what the outcome will be, it can help you get over what the difficult or horrible task is all about. I mean, who wants to wash the dishes or clean the house or whatever? And it sounds so simple, but we can get ourselves into a stressed situation because by avoiding the task, we procrastinate, and the task gets bigger, as I was just saying, and the end result of that is that there are more and more things that we don't want to do, and so we start avoiding everything. So remember, make a goal, make the reasons for the goal clear, make the timeline for the goal clear, stick a reward at the end of the goal, and it will be worth washing those dishes. On the other hand, sometimes we avoid doing whatever it is because of perfectionism and sometimes fear. Perfectionism is when we tell ourselves, I'm not going to do it unless I can do it perfectly just so. I can't do that unless there's exactly the right circumstances. And anything where we create these exactly perfect circumstances, and when we require the task to be done perfectly. There are many reasons for perfectionism, and there's also perfectionism that isn't unhealthy. So it's not always connected to procrastination. But sometimes it's necessary to ask yourself, Did I avoid doing that because I thought that I wouldn't do it perfectly or I wouldn't do it right? And perfectionism is really, in that situation, is kind of an excuse similar to fear of failure. Fear of failure is really based on poor self-esteem, an inability to properly judge what you're capable of, and as a result of that, a tendency to suffer from things like low self-confidence and the increase of fear of failure. And there lies the seeds for another vicious circle, because with low self-esteem and low confidence, I avoid doing the task. By avoiding doing the task, I prove to myself that I am indeed incapable of doing the task. That increases my low self-esteem and my poor self-confidence and my fear of failure, and a vicious circle is being set up. That's also usually happens in people who anyway are prone to negative beliefs, irrational beliefs, failure to recognize your own abilities. So similarly to the idea of doing things in small steps, it's important to focus on acknowledging what you can do and what you have done in the past. One of the ways to get on top of procrastination is just to take one action towards the thing that you need to do. And when you're suffering from poor self-esteem, one of the things you can do with that one action is also to reward yourself and acknowledge, therefore I can do it. So if I make it slightly more of an action the next time, slightly more to do or slightly more challenging, and beginning to do that. Poor self-esteem can affect many, many areas of our lives. It's something that's very well worth working on, whether it be in some kind of therapy or just getting more in control of your everyday life and learning to acknowledge your own accomplishments. It is a perceived lack of control that can often create a certain amount of procrastination as well. Because when people feel that they can't control the outcome of something, they then avoid doing it. So delaying getting started on your project because they feel that anyway the boss is going to criticize it no matter what they do. So then why do it? And it's actually the fear of loss of control. And I've often spoken about the Stoic principle of identify what you are in control of and let go of the rest. Actually, you are in control of the project and what it looks like at the end. You are not in control of the boss's response. It's not even worth seeing it as a response to what you did. They're going to respond that way. I'm going to do what I must do. Concentrate on what you are in control of. You're not in control of what happens afterwards. So that's why it's worth doing it. It's worth doing to get it done, because that's what you set out to do with the goal. You didn't do it to get the boss saying you're great. And if you did do it for that reason, well, you need to get your reason straight. You need to do it to get the task done. That's true for all goals and tasks. We can put all sorts of obstacles in our own way. Sometimes people put barriers in their own way because they're afraid of failure. So it's much more comforting to say, I failed because I didn't get around to doing it, than to say, I failed because I can't do that, because I'm bad at that. So the admitting that to yourself, finding yourself in that situation, becomes okay, if I just don't do it, then I've essentially got an excuse. The time ran away with me and I was unable to complete it. And even though procrastination itself is a bit of a flaw, it's not as bad a flaw as inability, incapability, simple failure. And so we can get into that mode of self-sabotage. There are other kinds of self-sabotage that people also employ in order to procrastinate. So on the one hand, there's like that fear of failure. Then there's some people who might even actively try and inhibit their own progress. So some people really feel that they don't deserve something, say. So they sabotage their efforts to get it. Similar to what I was saying earlier on, like a fear of failure, but sabotaging yourself means not even starting the process that's going to get you in that direction. For example, not even applying for the job. I don't apply for the job because I don't really feel that I deserve to get it, or I don't deserve the promotion, so I don't apply for the promotion. And it's a form of procrastination. Actually, if they bother to get on with the task, they will reach the end of the task, they'll achieve the outcome, they may very well get the reward, but they sabotage their own progress as a way of not having to do it at all. We can be our own worst enemies. And sometimes they're kind of psychological reasons like that, and sometimes it just is lack of motivation. I mean, let's just be honest. Sometimes I just am lazy. I don't feel like getting my act together in order to do it. Laziness itself, well, sooner or later, that's a problem that can only be fixed by doing something, not just lazing around. But the issue can be that the motivation is not properly identified. When motivations are outside of ourselves, it becomes harder to do something. When the reason why we're doing something isn't because of ourselves. You need to want yourself to do it. Same then, if the boss wants you to do it, you need to find your own reason to do it. So in so many situations, a great way to try and get more motivated and get a better outcome is to bring the motivation back to yourself. Find how you can bring the motivation back to yourself and not rely on something else to be the reason why you're doing it. There can be simple reasons, like even if there is an outside motivation, it's not important enough for you. The reward isn't good enough for you. So even when there is a reward, it must come from you. If you make your own reason to do something, your own timeline, your own reward, you'll be much more able to achieve it. There are some basic things that we can all do in order to overcome procrastination, no matter what the actual reason for it is. The important things are to make your environment conducive to your task, to doing the action that you need. That boils down to things like removing distractions, which you have seen is one of the reasons why we can so easily procrastinate, and to arrange a reward or something that's done at the outcome. It can be something small, it doesn't have to be a big deal. It's like, okay, well, I can have my coffee when I finally get this done. Maybe it's also something bigger than that. But the balance between making sure the environment is conducive and setting up a reward or something that happens at the end of achieving the task can make all the difference in the world to actually getting on with it. And then to ask yourself the question, if I were to take action now, what is the smallest action I can take? What is the smallest possible step in this type of task? And then you tell yourself, it's okay if I only take that step. I don't have to do it perfectly. I don't have to have any particular outcome. I've just got to take the step. I don't even have to measure how well I did at that step. I just need to take that first small step. So take that first small step. And then from there you can start developing the plan. Tomorrow's step is ever so slightly bigger. And the end of all of this is that you feel in control because you've got a plan of action. Make a plan of action that is based on knowing why you procrastinate, what your procrastination technique is, what is it that you do that prevents you pursuing your goals. And then, of course, implement your plan of action. Monitor your progress. Refine the plan by noticing how you manage to get around some tasks, some ways, or how other procrastination techniques have come in. And like that, you feel that you're in control, you're doing what you are able to do, and you're beginning to see progress. In so many ways, in so many times, It's lack of perseverance that is the bottom line of procrastination. That something makes us give up along the way. That is the point that you need to identify. Don't let me use this as an excuse, consciously or unconsciously. No matter how much of a reason this really seems to be, I know that it's not a reason. There is a small step I can take, because a lot of dealing with procrastination is about taking small steps. Don't forget, you can catch up with past shows on YouTube. You can share the channel and the videos with your friends in case they miss something, or if there's something you want them to see that they haven't managed to catch on Cape Town TV. But I will be back here on Cape Town TV, same time next week. See you then.